promising love, it's promising peace, it's promising a home where my soul will be released. No more sorrow, no more pain, and no more worries to trouble me again. The promised land is coming, bringing joys that never end.
Whoops. I cut you off. Hold on. I'm coming back to the music. It sounds really good. I'm starting it again.
Coming, I can feel it in my soul. Yes, the promised land is coming, I can feel it in my soul. Got this second in my heart, I'm booked, I believe it's time to go. The promised land is coming, too much crying everywhere. Promised land is coming, too much crying everywhere. It's time to jump on board, leave the cares break on through, I swear. It's promising love, it's promising peace, it's promising a home where my soul will be released. No more sorrow, no more pain, no more worries to trouble me again. The promised land is coming, bringing joys that never end. Waiting just for me. Yes, the promised land is waiting just for me. And when I finally get there, I know that my soul will be set free. It's promising love, it's promising peace, it's promising a home where my soul will be released. No more sorrow, no more pain, and no more worries to trouble me again. The promised land is coming, and it's just around the bend. Or do I reach the promised land? Yes, I asked the preacher how to reach that promised land. He said, child, it's very simple, put your word of mind. Keep singing your songs, one day you'll find the promised land was right here, deep inside you all the time.
Yeah, I love it. My guest today is Dan Foliart. Hi.
Hi, how are you, Cathy?
I'm good, Dan. Dan's sitting in his nice studio. And hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Roland and Mark, Frederica, Dan, thank you. Nora, Rolando. Yeah. So, gee, Dan, looking at your resume, like, how do you find time to actually live? You have a lot of responsibility and projects going on.
You know, time management is really important, as you know, probably, in your own life. I think you have a lot more going on than I do. I get those emails. I think you're twice as busy as I am, Cathy.
I think I'm varied, but you have a lot of important stuff, like a lot of ASCAP stuff and Society of Composers, right? And Lyricists.
Right, right.
That must be time consuming.
Well, ASCAP is what I'm working on now. I'm the immediate past president of Society of Composers and Lyricists, which is a great organization. I was president of that for 10 years. And for anyone who might have an interest in getting involved in writing music for TV or film or video games, I mean, it is definitely the place to start and the place to continue throughout your career. I was involved with that group for, I don't know, many years. But right now my efforts are focused on in the community world are focused on ASCAP. And I take that responsibility very seriously. I'm the writer co-chair. There's a writer co-chair and a publisher co-chair, because there are 24 members of the board that run the organization.
Oh,
and
wow.
12 publishers. And
Wow.
one of the publishers, Erwin Robinson, is the publisher co-chair. He's also head of the NMPA and has been a respected member of the ASCAP board longer than anyone in the history, well over 30 years. So I'm involved with that. Hopefully we'll be meeting live again. I mean, this Zoom that we're doing, this has been the protocol for all of us for so much. I mean, we're starting to get back, and hopefully we're going to be live in New York for our next meeting in June. But, we've had to get used to talking, to people in the Hollywood squares, for those who are old enough to remember that show.
I am.
But
Well, yeah, I'm gonna during this time we have together, I'll pick your mind a little bit, just in kind of simple questions that probably people watching might have questions about, but I won't go into that right this second because
okay.
yeah, I want to talk about that song, and you wrote that for Barbara Morrison, who is a very dear friend of yours, right?
I wrote the song for Barbara. It's called The Promised Land.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote it with a very talented songwriter, John Walmsley. And he did all the musical tracks there. He lives in rural England now.
Wow.
He was the second oldest son on the long-running TV series The Waltons, John Walmsley.
Oh, wow.
And he was always very, very interested in being involved with music. In fact, I remember I met him like when I first got to Los Angeles. He was on the show and had a chance to meet him. And they handed him a prop guitar for the cover of TV Guide. And he absolutely refused to be photographed with that guitar because it was some, lousy guitar, and he wanted to be photographed. He was going to be photographed. He wanted to be photographed with a great guitar, and he probably knows more about instruments and the quality of instruments than anyone I know. But he after that show, he really started getting very serious into music, and he worked with me on a show that I did for 11 years called Seventh Heaven. And the other guitarist who played most of that was Lawrence Juber, very, very talented, very talented former member of the group Paul McCartney and Wings. And we've been working together for years. But John also played a few of these sessions, and my trying to read my guitar parts was a challenge, because on this show, and we're digressing a little bit, but on this show, I would use altered tunings on the guitar. And so you had to be able to read guitar music. First of all, you had to be able to read music extremely well, but then you also had to be able to kind of decipher some of my shortcuts into writing in altered tunings. But anyway, John, let's get back to John and the song. Barbara Morrison was a dear friend for a number of years, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my history with her. But the last time I saw Barbara Morrison, who passed recently, she said, now, Dan, are you working on that song we talked about? Because she had asked me about, I don't know, probably about 2 months. I think it was when I saw you. It's when I saw you over at the Jazz Salon, and you were helping out with some of the technical aspects of it. Yeah. She had come up to me and she said, now, Dan, I want you to write me a song. And I said, well, Barbara, of course, I'd love to write you a song, and I want to write you a blues song. And then, so I started thinking about this song, and about 3 weeks after that, I called her up and I said, is there anything that you'd like as far as a topic on this song? And she said, it should be called The Promised Land. and I said, okay, I'll call it The Promised Land. And she said, now I want you to make sure in this song that people understand that the Promised Land is within your heart, and how you take care of people and how you relate to them and the love you show them every day. It's not a place that you have to go to. It's a place that you carry within your soul. And so that's how I approached the song. But the irony was, she didn't get a chance to hear it. She passed before I finished it, even though it was finished. And, it's funny how it's almost like someone else was guiding me. The last line of the first verse is, it says, the promised land is coming. I can feel it in my soul. Yes, the promised land is coming. I can feel it in my soul. Got this aching in my heart. I'm booked. I believe it's time to go. And I wrote that. And, she had heart problems. I mean, I didn't even know that. And so at any rate, I'm booked. I believe it's time to go. And I got to think
shortly after, actually.
So at any rate, John and I finished the song. She never heard it. But I'm hoping that maybe at some point, and I haven't even talked to you or David Ross about this, but I've almost thought the song that I was writing for her could almost have some different voices of her friends singing along on this sometime, and we could do a track with a lot of her friends singing this last song that we wrote.
That would be great. You could even have like a kind of a chorus effect too, with a bunch of people doing shout choruses and stuff.
And it might be something that could possibly be used to help her museum, in some way. Or
that's cool.
But the first time I heard Barbara Morrison, and you've been such a great friend of hers, and David Ross, I mean, amazing friend. One of the most I think you could never have a better friend than David Ross, and watching him
Totally.
first with Sally Kellerman, who became a friend.
Yeah.
When she started, faltering a little bit, David was there all the time.
Yeah.
And when Barbara, he wanted to set up that room that was basically her room there at the athletic club.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a person that's been a better friend than David Ross has been to people. And you have too, by the way.
Thanks.
Setting up that GoFundMe for her was just a godsend for her family.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about Barbara a little bit more when I first met her, in not so much in the past tense, but in what I saw. There was a club out at Universal City Walk, BB King's. I don't think it's there anymore, but
Right. That was a cool club.
I don't know. Did you ever sing there?
No, but I went there several times to see, I think I saw BB King there once even. It's great.
Well, so I was on one of these caravans that they occasionally had with maybe it was K-Jazz, and
Yeah.
you'd visit different jazz venues or blues venues in town where different people were playing. You may have been playing somewhere. Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
I saw
remember.
you, but
I remember that. That was a really cool project.
yeah, they were different clubs. So at any rate, my wife Cheryl and my good friend Jenna White, I think Jenna suggested we should go on this caravan. And so this was, I don't know, probably in the early 90s, I would say, early 90s. And so we had gone to a couple of clubs, and they were fine. There was some good talent, but we walked in BB King's and sat down, and Barbara came out and started singing. And I got to be honest with you, I was so moved. I think my wife looked over me. I was in tears, man. It's just like I had never heard anyone sing the blues like this in my life. And she was singing some great classic blues songs. And I said, I got to go back and try and meet her. And so I went backstage, and there she was, Queen Bee. I mean, I think that's what David started calling her. I don't know who started calling her Queen Bee, but she was sitting there holding court. And I went back and I think I'd composed myself by that point. And I said, there's no way to tell you how much I was moved by your performance. And I really liked the blues. One of the shows I did was Roseanne, and the theme song that my partner and I, Howard Pearl, wrote for that was very bluesy, and all the music was very, very bluesy. And so I was into the blues, but I hadn't heard anyone, sing the blues like this live. It was amazing. And I said, I don't know if anything will come of it, but I know that if I can find just the right vehicle for us to work on something together, I said I would love to do it. And Barbara, she said, let's do it. And I don't know, she probably thought of some crazy guy that's just coming backstage. How many people have you talked to over your career that people come back, hey, we got to do something, So at any rate, she said, okay. And I got her contact information, and sure enough, I bet it wasn't a year. It was probably half a year after that. I was one of my, I tell everyone that you've got to have certain champions in your life. This goes probably for more than music, goes probably from any profession. You have to have people that are real champions in your life. And I had a champion who I started working on with in Bosom Buddies was one of my first shows with Tom Hanks. It was his first show, and it was my second show. But at any rate, one of my champions I met on that show, his name was Chris Thompson. And he was just, I mean, he was one of the most original writers, producers that you'd ever see. And he always had these great ideas every time we'd do something together. But anyway, he was doing a new show called The Naked Truth, and it had Tay Leone in it. And we were sitting in his office, and he started telling me some jokes and everything. And he said, you know, I think this music ought to be, you know, it should be bluesy, and it should be a little off the wall. And so I said, I think I have just the perfect tone for this. There's a gal that I met a few months ago, and her name is Barbara Morrison. And let's not use a saxophone. Let's not use a guitar as the instrument. Let's have her do just scatting over the top of these musical cues, as they're called. And so he said, all right, I love it. I love it. Let's do that. And I wish I could pull up that theme song right now. I'm not sure I can do it on that quick notice, but at any rate, she sang on the theme, and she sang all the music for the show. And so I would give her indications what I want. And so we'd have a bluesy thing, and she'd go, "Whoa, head gone, head gone, head gone." And I had like some bluesy stuff going on there, you know, and it was one of the shows I enjoyed doing the most. And Barbara, man, she added such a dimension to it. And
Cool.
she became yet almost another character for this show, which is kind of what my music in its best case is, or not just my music. People who underscore TV and film, their music almost becomes a character in the show. And this would truly became a character in the show. And she always appreciated working on that, because it was a union gig under SAG, and she got all her medical benefits and everything. She would tell me repeatedly, you know, how much that meant to her. And we worked together on about three or four other shows. She did some music for the show I did called Home Improvement, and she she worked on a couple of things, but the main thing that was cool. the naked truth, and that was a lot of fun, you know.
I gotta go here. I gotta maybe it's pull-upable on YouTube or something. That's really cool.
Yeah. I did the first season, and when Chris Thompson left the show, I left the show. So you'll have to look for season 1.
Okay. That's really cool. I didn't know that about her. I mean, gosh, she did so much. She was very open to a lot of projects. I remember seeing her act in a small show in Hollywood.
Yeah, I saw that. Didn't she play Big Mama Thornton?
Yeah, yeah. And it was fantastic. She was a great actress. And then, you know, she had the musical thing, because Big Mama Thornton, you know, it was musical. Yeah, I remember being very impressed with that. Plus, she was always, you know, she was always creating all these events. Every time she saw me, she would say, "Kath, I have an idea." Because she wanted me to somehow be involved, you know, like we could create something together. It's always, the ideas were great, you know, and it was just, you know, you have to decide what you're going to do, where you're going to do it. Well, I can't remember one time. Anyway, there was always some really great ideas, great moments with her.
Well, I sent her this. I'm not sure she read it, because she didn't mention anything to me. I had actually conceived of a TV show where she would be like that, one of the prominent characters. And I sent it to her. It's almost like, you know, I haven't sent it around because I haven't really fleshed it out. But I wish she would have read that, because I somehow I felt like even though it wasn't quite finished, I wanted to get it to her. I don't know. Somehow I just felt like I needed.
Because she was the inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Who knows, maybe there'll be some, I'm working on it with my
that's
daughter. Maybe
nice.
one of these days, we'll actually do something in that will also be kind of a tribute to her. So
That's really nice. And did I see you at the memorial? Were you there?
unfortunately, I was in San Francisco. I wasn't there. I
Well, it
had the
was,
time.
a lot of
Tell me
times I
about it.
don't like going to funerals and memorials, just because, it's sad, but on the other hand, I always like to also to pay tribute and to kind of share with the feelings of grief with people. But I'll tell you, I walked into Lemert Park and it wasn't about grief. There was like this whole feeling of joy and love. And the band was great, joyful, and we had a few moments of talking and quiet time thinking about her. And I spoke to a few people who were pretty crushed, but boy, it was a healing. It was really nice, beautiful, beautiful time.
Well, that's the way I want it to be for me. No
Yeah,
tears, no tears, man. It's celebratory. I remember when my
yeah.
mom passed, I was totally broken up, but at the gathering we had for her, we gathered around the piano and I started hammering out my friend Lieber and Stoller, Mike Stoller is a good friend. I started singing Kansas City and just wailing on it, because my mom always liked that song, and I felt it should be a celebration, So
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, well, um, yeah, okay, so I'm going to ask one ASCAP type of question here, just, for information. So, I think the constant question for people like me out in the world are, do I join ASCAP or BMI? And actually, I joined both at 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 various times because you can't be a member of both, I think. And and it's funny, I'm a member of BMI now, but I always have my eye on ASCAP, and I just wonder, I mean, I admit it, I wonder about should I change back to ASCAP? And I don't know
we'd love to
why.
have you. We'd love to have you over there.
But what is the, can you, I don't want you to necessarily work hard and go deep into this, but I think people are interested in that question.
As far as which one to join, or
Yeah.
why
I
you
mean,
join one,
I think in
well,
the old days, wasn't it like more of the Great American Songbook was with ASCAP? And so if you
well,
were,
first of all, I think what we have to maybe inform everyone about is, so when you have a piece of music performed, whether it's on radio or whether it's on TV, not so much in film, overseas in film, but mainly in TV, on the radio, and now certainly with streaming. God, it's a whole brave new world.
yeah,
But you're entitled to get paid for your, if someone uses your, let's say a TV show, someone uses a piece of my music in a TV show, that TV show has to get a license to be able to play that music, because just the fact that I created that, even if I didn't get it published, it's inherent in just creating that piece of music that I am the author. Well, what ASCAP and what BMI do is, instead of, a radio station or a TV station having to go to like 1,000 different writers, 10,000 different writers, ASCAP and BMI are organizations, performing rights organizations, that the writer can join, and then the licensor can license your music along with every other person who's a member of one of those organizations. So they can license, so they use that music. So they basically make it really easy for the licensor to have access to all the music they need. So a writer will join ASCAP or BMI, and there are a couple other organizations out there, CSAC and GMR. in the United States, and then overseas, each country has its own performing rights organization. So as a writer, if you write a piece of music and you want to make it available on the radio, or if you want to make it available on TV, you join one of these organizations. Now, the question is why you would join ASCAP versus BMI. I have nothing but good things to say about BMI, because just so you know, when I first started, they gave me my first advance, and I think it was about a $500 advance, and I never thought I'd ever see that much music, money for writing music. And they were great. There was a club. Do you remember Art Lopez? Do you remember that place over on the Sunset?
Yeah.
Well, they showcased me and my partner, Tom Chaparro. And they also, were very interested in my career. So I have nothing but good things to say about BMI. And I had a lot of great friends over there over the years. ASCAP is run by people like me. There are 12 writers and there are 12 publishers. And we're basically, there's a whole fabulous management team under the head of Elizabeth Beth Matthews, who's doing a terrific job. Even in the midst of COVID, our organization has been doing great with this amazing management team. But essentially, you have a board of directors, and they are writers and publishers. And that's what differentiates us. We're the only writer run organization. So you have people like me that are they're working with management to make sure that things are going your way. BMI has a different structure. They're not run by writers. So I think, having a person like myself, our chairman is my great friend, Paul Williams. He's been doing such an amazing job. His upbeat attitude has taken us through COVID. He's just done a wonderful, wonderful job. But I think that, you can get to know both organizations. But for me, ASCAP has been terrific. I've been a member of ASCAP since 1980. So I've been a member there for a long, long time. But as far as you go, Cathy, we'd love to have you over at ASCAP, absolutely, I told you.
Is it an easy transition?
Oh, well, I think your contract, normally you sign a contract and you join one organization for a couple of years, and then you have the option of transitioning. But if anyone wants to find out more about it, we've got a great membership department. And, if I do say so, we're doing a fabulous job for our members. We actually collected the most money we've ever collected for our membership over the last year. So,
oh, wow.
It's really fabulous. It's been challenging, particularly overseas, with COVID, because, also you get paid when your music is played in like bars and restaurants. And you can imagine how much they were hit with during COVID. We're starting to see things rebound, but man, that was a tough couple of years on concerts. Also, you get paid for concerts. It's not just television, film, and those businesses were hard hit, but we're starting to see them come alive again, which is fabulous.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to this that are affected. It's really, musicians, restaurants, all of what you said. A quick question. I've always been curious about this. How does ASCAP and BMI make money?
Well, first of all, they pay out everything. They have operating expenses, but they're essentially nonprofits. Oh. So they're basically collecting the money, and the money goes out. 90 cents on every dollar goes out back to the membership. So,
I see.
So that's the way it works. And our operating expenses are at an all-time low. So we're very proud of that.
Oh, that's cool. The other thing is, this is probably just too big a question, but this whole, I mean, the way that the music industry has been moving, let's talk about people like me who are less involved in licensing and TV and movies kind of stuff, and more in performance. And of course, the CD business has really, gone down, and to put it nicely. And then the streaming, which I see, and I've listened to different organizations working on getting compensated for streaming. That whole area, is that something that ASCAP specifically has departments working on?
No, absolutely. And I think that we're starting to see a real movement in the streaming world, because things are moving a lot more to that area. But yeah, we have a licensing team that is working 24/7 on that. The way I look at the fact that there's been a growth into streaming. When I first started having my programs migrate from network television to cable, let's say, there were some growing pains in the first few years. I mean, it's like every technology, brings its challenges, and streaming, was much the same as cable was after network. So it's just a matter of, we're moving into a new world, and we have to adjust to that. And I think we're doing a great job. But yeah, absolutely, we have a very active department that is in charge of the licensing and keeping abreast of all that.
Are regular people, out in the community, are they needed to have a call to action for change?
Well, I think depending if there's legislation up, like the MLC, the Music Licensing Collective, was put together because there was a bill in Congress that had unanimous support from both sides of the aisle. And I think anytime that there might be some legislation that might be of interest, we try to let our membership know about it. And there's nothing at this moment in time, but from time to time, we actually go in front of Congress and lobby for bills. In fact, one of the great things that we've done, haven't been able to do it during COVID, it really upsets me, but we have a concert called We Write the Songs, and it's held at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And I had a chance to actually perform my Roseanne and Home Improvement themes in front of all these members of Congress. They file into the Library of Congress. There's this great theater there that Aaron Copland actually premiered Appalachian Spring on this small concert hall, because he originally wrote that piece for 12 or 13 instruments. Now it's a big symphony, but it's the Coolidge Hall, and we perform in front of members of Congress our songs. In my case, I did my TV shows, but I mean, we've had, Jimmy Webb play there. We had Hal David play there. And there've been all these wonderful people. Michael McDonald was there one year. And what we do is we teach the members of Congress the importance of the song, or in my case, in the television themes. But a lot of people, there's a big education to be had in Washington, because they think a lot of times that the artists that they know are the people that perform or that wrote all their songs. The biggest example I can think of is everyone thought, for those who are old enough, that Barry Manilow wrote "I Write the Songs." He didn't write that song. A guy named Bruce Johnson is now a member of the Beach Boys. He wrote that song. But I think there's this conception in Washington that, oh, whoever the artist is, they wrote that song. And so what we do is we try to show them, that they're actually people that are depending on this income. They're writing these songs, and most of them aren't famous. I mean, I mentioned Hal David, Jimmy Webb. These are famous people, Paul Williams, the Bergmans. But there are a lot of people that are just, getting by, getting their families fed. Small businesses is what we preach to the Republicans. I mean, they're small businesses essentially. And of course, the Democrats are interested in helping out, the intellectual property aspects of this. So what we do is we present ourselves in front of Congress, these members of this concert once a year. And that always helps because I think we've informed them a lot of what we do and how it's different than being a recording artist, for example. But if there's a bill that needs some work, we always get the message out that, we need your help, and we try and get some grassroots help. But right now, there's not a particular bill that we're, that we're lobbying for, but there may be like next week. You never can tell.
Were you involved with that AB, I forget the number, last year or the year before? It was kind of the Uber bill, about you couldn't be a gosh, I forget the words, I can't remember the words, but self-contractor like me. If I worked for you, I would be responsible for my own taxes and stuff. Remember that bill?
I remember that bill. We weren't, as I recall, we weren't heavily on it, but I know, isn't that one that Adam Schiff was very much involved with, seeing through and looking out for people like, the artists and the creatives. But, these things come up periodically because that's just the way our country runs, right?
Yeah, that's so true. I have a question from a friend here who's really good at questions. He's a guitar player and he's a student at North Texas. And he said, I'm sure you've likely connected with someone like Jonathan Wolfe, Seinfeld, Will and Grace. When you listen for an aspiring composer's work, what are key things you listen to that makes a great composition?
Well, what's this gentleman's name?
Taylor.
All right. Taylor, you're at North Texas. That's one of the great schools. In fact, when I did my first score, I was back in college, and the gentleman who actually scored that movie his name was Yuki Hart, and he was from Oklahoma City, and he had gone to North Texas, and it's one of the great schools. And I had written the songs for it with my partner Tom Chaparro, but Yuki, who went to North Texas, he scored that. So what I think what I try and do, at least with my scores, is you try and imbue whatever you're working on with its own sound. I talked about The Naked Truth with Barbara scatting over that. I mean, that gave it a unique sound. With Home Improvement, I used 50 different tool sounds within the body because it was about a man who had a tool time. And so on that, I used all these tool sounds. And I also, Tim Allen had a routine in his stand-up routine where he'd go, and I use that as part of the music. And, instead of a drum fill at the end of measure 8, there's, he did it twice. And with Roseanne, I tried to imbue it with this bluesy sound. I mean, I blew it the first time out, but I got a second chance. We can talk about that. But let me get back to your question. What I would look for is someone that has a unique voice doing something different. And you almost have to have a project that you're working on where you can go, okay, this is what I should do for that. Yeah. And with Seventh Heaven, if you're a guitarist, you should look up, or you may already know about Lawrence Juber. He's got a great website. He's got about 25 albums out, and you should be listening for this. I think we're finally this summer going to get out an album of this music that's been sitting in the can for like almost 20 years from Seventh Heaven. But it's Lawrence Juber playing all this great open tuning stuff. So on that show, I tried to imbue it with like a real open Americana sound, but I used open tunings on the guitar. I came up with two different tunings for every episode. And the show was on for 11 years, so I ended up repeating myself as far as the tunings, not the music. Yeah. So I would say what I would look for is a unique sound, and have your own voice. That's my biggest suggestion on that one.
Somebody who comes to mind for me is my dear friend Catherine Bostick. Do you know her?
Yeah. Now, where
she's a film composer and a little bit of TV, and she's done some beautiful documentaries like the Rita Moreno, Toni Morrison, Amy Tan. And
wow, she's doing great. I know I've heard her name. I don't know her personally, but I'm sure she has her own voice.
Yeah, she has like this real beautiful mixture of, I don't know, Americana and movie and jazz, and yeah, it's very unique. I think every time I hear a score, it's like, yeah, that gives me the impression of her. I think it's great.
And your tendency is, and that was a little bit of my tendency I had to get away with. When I had the success with Roseanne, I mean, that show was #1 show. Home Improvement was right on the heels of that. And so your tendency was kind of to do what you did the show that was really successful in the next one.
Right.
And you got to fight that. You got to fight that. So I think that, that's one of the problems as you continue through your career is you got to continue having that unique voice.
Yeah. And creating something new. Okay. So I know this isn't the Taylor Hatch show, but he asked such great questions. But I will mention that Leslie Blair is here, and she said, "You are an unsung hero for the little guy in music. Hats off to you giving back to the industry, and what a wide-ranging knowledge and career. Enjoying this a lot." Thanks.
Okay,
Leslie.
well, thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, in your opinion, what are your thoughts on musicians composing using electronic instruments or Logic or MIDI and the expansion of technology with composing?
Okay, is this from Taylor again?
Yes,
Is he the one at North Texas?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Taylor, that is an excellent question. An excellent question. All right, so not all my, 90% of my colleagues started heading out, building their home studios and getting into all the new technology.
Right.
I didn't do that. In fact, I'm sitting here, I've got a pretty modest setup here. My entire career, I take my hats off to all the great musicians that I've worked with. There is not enough that can be said about utilizing the talents of the great saxophonists like Gary Herbig that worked with me, Michael Joachim on drums, Dominic Genova on bass. These are people that I went back to time and time again, even if it was in different styles. Jim Cox on piano. I think trying to utilize those great musicians wherever you are.
Yeah.
They bring all the experience that they've had on their instruments to your scores. And so not enough can be said about utilizing those talents. So I would say that's number one. I'm sitting here, I got Logic up here because I'm working on a project right now that I got to get some tracks done for a musical. I'm working on a couple of musicals right now. And so I have Logic, and I work on it. I've gotten actually pretty good on it. But I would say you've got to learn that. You've got to learn the new technology, but make sure and don't forget those live musicians. And if you can, incorporate those as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. And then he has another question. As a composer and arranger myself, one thing I notice is that sometimes your work can be too harmonic if you're not careful. In my case, as a big band writer, for the composers that you, Dan, admire, what qualities do you think are essential to making a great song?
Well, that another good question. I guess you should just bring him up on Tyler up on screen so we can go back and forth. Tyler, I love great melody. And in fact, the way I got started in the first part of my career, I was doing the music for shows like Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. And I think Gary Marshall really loved the melodic content being brought into his shows, because there were some real warm moments on Happy Days in particular. So I think that don't be afraid of being harmonic. I love it. I love it. In fact, I think there's not enough harmony going around today. I think a lot of things are more textural, but man, don't be afraid of harmony. Bring it back, man, because I think that beautiful harmonic structures can add so much to the emotion of a scene. Now, of course, if you're, it all depends on what kind of show you're doing. If you're doing a show that melody would actually get in the way, then you got to make that judgment call. But don't forget melody. I mean, I was such a great admirer of Henry Mancini's. I think he more personified that. And Cathy, I know all the people that you sing so beautifully. Burt Bacharach and Hal David and the Bergmans and all the people that they wrote with, Johnny Mandel and Michel Legrand and Dave Grusin. All these people had such great melodic, harmonic bases that I just love. So I still, I still feel like that's one of the most important qualities that you can have.
Yeah, that's so cool. I was trying to remember, I'm never going to remember this, but there was some very modern jazz player who wrote music for a TV show.
Well, Shorty Rogers or Pat Williams, or
it was more modern, like a John Scofield or a Charlie Hayden or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the music was definitely there. It was that kind of music, and it was very different and amazing. And it was like you say, it depends on the show, and it was wonderful. Wish I could remember that, because that was really interesting, actually.
Well, when was it? I guess it may have been Elmer Bernstein who first kind of introduced jazz. It was around that time. There were two or three people that were started experimenting with jazz in their scores. And even David Raxon and The Bad and the Beautiful and Laura, I mean, he brought some real jazz qualities to it. But before that, it was kind of steeped in the European tradition. I mean, Tchaikovsky and, Wagner, all these Europeans came over here, and Max Steiner, was writing music that could have been classical scores. And then all of a sudden, some people like Elmer and Lee Stevens, I believe is his name, who did the Wild Bunch with, I believe that was maybe one of the first jazz scores, but a lot of those people, it was that Marlon Brando, I think it's called the Wild Bunch, but people started bringing in jazz. So I don't know what score you're talking about, Cathy, but an unusual and creative jazz score could be extremely effective. I mean, a lot of Henry Mancini's scores.
Gorgeous.
Come on.
Yeah.
We're very jazz oriented.
Oh, yeah. And I was going to say, he was kind of the perfect blend of melody and harmony, right?
Absolutely.
Just absolutely beautiful. Enrico Morricone, I think, is really beautiful too. I mean, I guess in Europe, possibly the writers are more invited to write like that, but
Morricone, man, he was absolutely he was a genius, man. And sorry we lost him, fairly recently, but that Mission score he did, the Mission, God, the high oboe work in that was just amazing.
Cinema Paradiso.
Yeah. I mean,
I saw that movie in Japan. This is funny. I saw that movie in Japan. I was waiting, or I guess I was in my hotel room, whatever. And there was no English because it was in Italian and the subtitles were Japanese.
Yeah.
And the music was gorgeous and the story is just so gorgeous. I was weeping through the whole thing. That music was so powerful for that story.
That's the way I felt, much like I was reacting to Barbara Morrison with tears. We honored him at ASCAP, and they did like about a 10-minute film segment of his scores. I just couldn't believe how beautiful they were.
Yeah.
I was fortunate when I was president of the Society of Composers and Lyricists, we gave him our honorary award, and got a chance to spend a little time with and he didn't speak any English. He had to speak with his interpreter, and he wanted me to make sure and tell young composers, remember the 3 B's, and he said it was Bach, Brahms, and Beethoven. So I guess I'll throw that back out to Tyler there. The maestro thinks that you need to definitely have a mastery of that music as well. So I'm not gonna go against Morricone. Man was a genius.
That's really interesting. Okay, and let's see. Another Taylor question is, what was one piece of advice? He likes this question, and I like it too. What was one piece of advice someone gave you that helped you shape your compositional voice? You probably already said it, but
no, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Errol Gardner told me that, and Errol Gardner, who wrote Misty as well as many other things, great pianist. He said, "Write what you feel, and feel what you write." Straight from Errol Gardner. Write what you feel and feel what you write. And that was a big piece of advice. And so don't try and I guess the sense is don't try and emulate anyone else. Write what's in your heart.
It's the same in performing. You get good at who you are authentically. That's because there's nobody else like you.
Yeah.
So you get good at that. Copying is good for studying, but beyond that, it's like, yeah, just be yourself, you know.
Well, here's what I did. And when I was first starting out, and the truth of the matter is, it would probably behoove me to do this again, but I would take, like, first of all, I'd study classical scores, or let's call them concert scores. And maybe there was a 8-bar phrase in The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. And maybe there was 16 bars of Afternoon of the Faun by Debussy. And I would take those orchestral scores and take them down to about 4 lines, so you could really get inside what those composers were thinking about. And one of my favorite pieces is Tchaikovsky's Pathétique, and the fast movement, I think, is the Allegretto, the third movement. I took down that whole thing because I wanted to see what Tchaikovsky was doing. And not so much that you're going to utilize this in a film score, but it's just good to know, just like Morricone was saying, what these people, what was going on in their head. And Debussy, for example, the harmonic structure is just like staggering. And with Tchaikovsky, how he could get these bombastic, sonorities in the orchestra. That was really important. And of course, Stravinsky, I mean, the meters and the rhythms and everything in the Rite of Spring, I mean, to have that broken down to about 3 or 4 lines where you could kind of start getting inside these people's heads, that was important. But you can also do it in pop songs. There's a lot of stuff that is, even some stuff by Justin Bieber that's going on now. There's some real interesting things going on in pop music. Spend some time, figure out how they're getting these sounds. So it doesn't have to be just classical music. It could be whatever appeals to you.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Also, Dori Amarillo, who's a great guitar player. He owns a studio, and he's also a really beautiful arranger. He loves your Roseanne theme.
Thank you. Thank you. It came back. And I went from being on yet again the #1 show 30 years later to being unemployed in about 2 hours after her tweet. So what I've continually said is, I'm sure glad there wasn't Twitter back in 1988 when that show first came out. But that was amazing. That was amazing.
I'm going to jump a little bit to your growing up. I'd love to know how this all kind of came about for you. You were, I'm guessing, a pianist first?
I was a guitarist first, and I had a band back in high school with my friend Bill Gwynn, and we were called the Scholars. My mother had named us the Scholars. She wanted the Scholars. Come on,
That sounds like a mom kind of a thing, but it's a cool name though.
And I was doing, songs that you might feel the Scholars were doing. Down the way where the nights are gay and the sun shines slightly on the, Jamaica Farewell.
Yeah.
By my friend Irving Burgee. But then, the girls weren't showing up for these concerts. So we decided to get a little edgier. I think it was Bill that said, let's call ourselves the Night Riders. That had more of an edge to it, right?
Absolutely.
And we were doing songs like "We Got to Get Out of This Place" and Kicks, and some of those Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil songs, and we were doing Beatles, of course. So I started out on the guitar, and my mother was a great pianist, and so I tried to take piano, and I think I just had the wrong teacher, and I gave that up pretty soon, and I took up the guitar. Actually started on the baritone ukulele, and then took up the guitar, and then it was when I got to college. I changed and started playing as much piano as I did guitar, and you'll remember this time in music, Cathy. You know, sometimes these references get a little stale as you get older, as I get older. So I was in college. I had left Oklahoma City and I went to Amherst College in Western Massachusetts. It's a small liberal arts school.
Yeah.
And I was, my dad was a prominent trial attorney back in Oklahoma City.
Oh.
And I think that I always had the back of my mind that I'd maybe go into law. I was state president of the Teen Democrats back in Oklahoma. And so I went to college thinking poli-sci. And then I went to see James Taylor and Carole King. And they had a concert in rural Massachusetts my freshman year. I went to that concert. I returned the next day. I quit the baseball team. I changed my my major from poli-sci to music, and I never looked back.
But, my God, that's wild.
So, but at any rate, I enjoyed music in high school, but I don't think I really thought seriously about doing it. But let me mention one other thing. I did start getting the bug. So it was the summer of my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
I had a chance to go to Europe, and, you know, you're supposed to be studying French, or maybe you're studying Spanish or Italian. It was one of these study abroad programs.
Yeah.
And the thing was that there were 52 girls on this trip, and there were 3 guys on this trip. And I thought I was in seventh heaven, you know. But one of the things is I met my first writing partner over there.
Oh.
His name is Tom Chaparro. And Tom has gone on, he's in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Oh.
And we started writing songs to kind of, you know, get the girls. And so we started writing songs over there in the South of France. We were supposed to be studying, you know, French, but we ended up, I think we ended up studying girls and writing songs, you know. But
great training.
Yeah. So Tom and I, this goes along, Tom and I started writing songs. And then during my first 5 years out in LA, I was trying to be a songwriter. So now sitting on this board of directors, I'm around all the people, you know, that I wanted to be. Paul Williams and Jimmy Webb. I'm sitting around these people these are the guys that I really looked up to. So that's really amazing. But Tom and I wrote for the first 5 years. And what we're doing now is I called him up during COVID and I said, listen, I think that we ought to build a musical around our songs that we wrote during our 20s. So one of the projects I have going on now is we have re-demoed, right at this point, we've re-demoed about 3 of the songs, and we're going to do 3 more in the next couple of months. But we're re-demoing some of those songs that we wrote when we were in our early 20s, maybe even 1 or 2 we wrote over in the South of France. And I'm hoping to kind of mold those into some kind of musical project. But Tom is, you know, first of all, he's revered in Nashville, and he has access to these wonderful, wonderful musicians and singers there. So, I mean, these tracks are coming out. It's like adding new life into these songs I was writing back when I was 22 or 23. And
that's so,
you know, that's a very creative time in your life too, to be writing songs or doing anything. I feel like maybe I did some of my best work when I was in my 20s. So that's been a lot of fun. So
that's
so
fun.
It's from Oklahoma to Massachusetts. I took my junior year out here at USC. And it was during that time that I got my first professional job. I wrote a film score. And we talked about that earlier with Yuki Hart doing the scoring, and Tom and I wrote the songs. But, I thought I was on my way to fame and fortune, but, it was another 5 years before I got another job. So, it didn't exactly happen overnight. But anyway, I've been out here since after college.
So you just kept working. And did you also gig for money as well?
I've heard you sing. You were amazing, Cathy. I got to tell you, you
thanks.
blew me away on that night of Burt Bacharach and Hal David songs. When I sang, on the other hand, I just remember being back in Oklahoma City. Well, we had the Night Riders, but I also tried to do some coffee. You remember coffee shops? They were really big.
Absolutely.
And I just remember a couple of times, performing, and I'd start out with, pretty much a full house. And by the end of the second or third song, it was emptied out. So I didn't really gig out here, I did tell Paul Williams that there used to be a place across from A&M Records, which was, I think that was the old Charlie Chaplin studio over there.
La Brea.
La Brea.
Yeah.
And now I think it's Jim Henson Productions.
Yeah, I think so too.
But that's where all the great, carpenters, those are people who can remember that.
Yeah, that was an amazing location.
Yeah, but I did, to answer your question, I did gig. There was a place right across the street from that called the Etc. Club.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
I
gosh.
used to play there periodically. I don't think I ever made any money, but they would let you perform. And I told Paul, because, Paul was writing all those songs for the Carpenters. He also wrote some songs for Three Dog Night. He wrote a song called Old Fashioned Love Song. And I said, I used to sing that at the Etc. Club every Tuesday night. No, I wish, I was probably over there. I wish I had heard it, So that was the extent of my gigging. But I tell you what, Cathy, I got to tell you COVID has been like everything I've been wanting to do for the last 30 years. I'm doing it now. On these Seventh Heaven and Secret Life of American Teenagers shows, at the end of the day, I'd keep the musicians an extra hour, and I laid down tracks for all my favorite songs from when I was about 10, 11, 12, up until I was about 16 or 17. So I have the tracks of about 40 songs of my favorite songs played by the greatest musicians in town. And so I've got the tracks, and I'm singing these things now. So I'm singing songs like Venus. I'm singing songs like The Night Has a Thousand Eyes, The Look of Love, Blue on Blue, True Love Never Runs Smooth, Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me. I'm doing all these songs that I love during that period. I'm putting my vocals on right here with this microphone. And
That is so cool.
and so I'm hoping that
We can't hear one, can we?
You think I could play it from here?
Yeah. I think if you, we could probably hear it just regularly, or you might want to share the screen, and that sound is a little better.
If I share the screen?
Yeah, you share the screen, and then at the like when you hit share screen, there on the bottom left, there's a box share sound, and that works really good.
Can you give me just half a second?
Sure. Wow. All
right, let's see which one I'm going to play you. I'm going to, well, first of all, let me get the envelope. Well, I appreciate you asking me to do this. Now, my vocals aren't as good as yours now, but they are, I really love doing this. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's do let's do my friend Hal David's song. You want to hear a little bit of the Look of Love?
Sure.
All right. Now you would sing this a lot better than me because I've heard you.
Well, like I said, I like authentic. I like it coming from the person.
All right.
That's what turns me on.
All right. Well, here we go. Let's see.
I will say you could come to
Okay.
my jam session. I do a jam
Okay.
session once a month.
Let me
Come
stop it.
anytime.
Now, can you hear that at all, or should I? I'll do that. share
No,
screen.
yeah,
Okay.
share screen probably.
Okay, let me stop this thing. Okay. Let me return this. So you're teaching me about the technology. Okay, share screen.
And then down on the left, it says share sound.
Yeah, I see that.
Click
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Then say share.
Yep.
Okay. All right. How loud do I turn it? Or do I have any control over that?
Up on the right, you have your volume up on the right. No, on the window, the music window.
Oh yeah.
You see
Turn
that?
Yeah. How far
that,
up?
that will control the volume.
Okay.
You just have to see what you like. It's usually not quite all the way 100%
Okay.
up, just a little like 90% or something.
Okay. Now, what should I do with this microphone that's on? Should I turn that off? while we're done?
Nope, you don't
Okay.
even have to.
Okay. Well, here we go. The Look of Love. Hal David, my dear friend, who was my mentor on the board, and Burt Bacharach. Can you hear that?
Yep.
The look of love is in your eyes, a look your smile can't disguise. The look of love, it's saying so much more than just words could ever say. And what my heart has heard, well, it takes my breath away. I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you. Now that I have found you, you've got the look of love. It's on your face, a look that time can't erase. Be mine tonight. Let this be just the start of so many nights like this. Let's take a lover's vow and then seal it with a kiss. I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you. Now that I have found you, don't ever go.
I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you. Now that I have found you, don't ever go. Don't ever go. Don't ever go. Don't ever go.
Yeah. Yay, Dan.
Now, let's see. Can you still hear me?
I can. And now you have a button at the top that says stop sharing.
Thanks for teaching me that. Yeah, that was
That was very nice.
Jim Cox on piano, who
Yeah.
has been working a lot with Burt Bacharach, by the way.
He's a great player. All of these
uh,
guys you mentioned, of course, are jazz players too.
Yeah, Lawrence Juber was playing
Yeah.
the guitar. Gary Herbig was playing. He's worked with me forever. He was playing the saxophone.
Yeah.
Michael Joachim on drums, and
Uh-huh.
Dominic Genova on
Genova.
bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those guys are great. You know, that was very sweet, very heartfelt, and that's what I mean. I mean, when at my jam, a lot of semi-pros and amateurs get up, but
Mhm.
and also at my workshops, it's like when people get up and they're doing their heart. I love it. I'd almost rather see them than a lot of professionals out and about, you know, because a lot of times professionals are, you know, concentrating on technique or, you know, that kind of, and it's just it misses the mark, you know. But anyway, that was really nice.
Well, a lot of these songs I'm doing on this album, and I'm calling it Souvenirs Part 1, Part 2.
Oh, cool.
But I'm doing a Sedaka song called Alice in Wonderland, Neil Sedaka and Howard Greenfield. I have a version of April Fools, which I love, by Burt Bacharach and Hal David.
I love that song.
But I don't have the tracks separated, and my vocal is mixed in on that, so I'm probably not going to use that.
Yeah.
But there was a singer in the early 60s that I just love, named Bobby V.
Mhm.
And his big song was Take Good Care of My Baby, but I liked his whole repertoire. And I'm doing a song that Burt and Hal wrote called Be True to Yourself. I'm doing The Night Has a Thousand Eyes by him.
Yeah.
He did a song that no one will ever know called Never Love a Robin. Another
Oh.
song called Charms. These were all Bobby V records, you know, written by different people. But then I'm also doing my fellow friend from Oklahoma that we become good buds is Jimmy Webb, and I'm doing by the time I get to Phoenix, and a song that very few people have ever heard called Campo Dien Chino, about when he lived out here in LA.
Yeah.
And I'm doing, by the time I get to Phoenix, I'm doing Wichita Lineman by him. And then I jump back and do Venus by Frankie Avalon.
Venus, if you will.
And a song that you probably sung, You Belong to Me, which is one of my favorite songs. But you know, I got Nat King Cole's That Sunday, That Summer, which I've always loved.
God, that is a gorgeous song.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
And,
that's really gorgeous.
some more obscure Burt Bacharach and Hal David songs. So Fools Rush In, you remember? You probably do a great version of that. I do two versions. One that's kind of like Rosemary Clooney, the slower ballad version of it, and I also do a version that's like Ricky Nelson's up-tempo Fools Rush In. So
Cool.
You know, got some Paul Anka on there, and you know, I got This Boy by the Beatles that goes into, I do a medley of This Boy and You Send Me, along with Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me. They're all that kind of 12/8 kind of feel, you know. At any rate, I'm
It's
having
hard
a
to,
great
isn't
time
it
with
hard to pick out songs? Like I did one of my last project was um, Social Anthems Volume 1, and I also have
Right.
Social Anthems Volume 2, but I found it really hard to pick out, only 9, 8 songs, because that time, growing up, that time was so interesting, and there was so much new music being created. I mean, even like from the period of Send Me, I mean, from that period on, there was so much music coming out that was so much a part of our lives, and it was just so great.
It was. And so there was a point where I told you Hal David was my mentor on the board. In fact, I'm going to see his widow has become a great friend, Eunice David, this weekend. But
Cool.
he said, "Okay, Dan, we're supposed to be in this ASCAP Foundation meeting, but I tell you what, I know you've been wanting to do it. Let's say we have to leave." And so we said we had to leave, and Hal took me down to the Brill Building where he had written so many of those songs, and he took me right to the room where he and Hal
Wow.
probably wrote The Look of Love there. And he said, "Yeah, Bert would sit right here, and I'd stand here," and it was that famous music. But the way the Brill Building worked, it had Carole King right across the street with Jerry Goffin, and they were writing amazing songs. I do a song on here called "The Point of No Return" that Gene McDaniels did, but they were writing songs. Then you had Neil Sedaka and Howard Greenfield writing. You had Bert and Hal, and you had Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann sitting there, and they were all trying to write the next hit song for Bobby Vinton, let's say, or Bobby V. And Bobby Vinton, I'm recording Blue on Blue, but they were all, it gave it this kind of a competitive atmosphere. Who's going to get the next Gene Pitney record, and it was a thriving place. So when Hal took me to that office, I mean, it blew me away.
It's probably thrilling. Yeah.
To get a chance to go in that building, and just so much great music was going on there.
Yeah, I had a
That's
girlfriend
from about 1960 to
yeah
59 to about the time the Beatles came out, probably about 63, 64.
Right. My girlfriend made a show about the Brill Building, and it was really good. It's just, I mean, so much great music came out of that period of time, didn't it?
It was great, and it was that real melodic, type of music, which I think got me really. Probably the reason I started writing music for TV was I was able to use a lot of the sensibilities that I learned from, doing those songs. Listening to those songs over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Also, Lieber and Stoller. Mike Stoller, as I said earlier, has become a great friend. I mean, we haven't even touched on my love of the Elvis catalog. I mean, I
gotta talk to my husband, man.
I am a real ham when I get up in front of the audience. And of course, Mike and Jerry wrote, I mean, so many great songs. They wrote Jailhouse Rock. They wrote Love Potion Number 9. All these were like huge hits. Charlie Brown, but they wrote all these songs for Elvis. They wrote Lovin' You, which is a beautiful song by him. Bossa Nova Baby, which I absolutely adore that song. And Jailhouse, when I was president of the SCL, we honored Mike, and Jerry had already passed, but I introduced him and I said, I got to do a little something for you. And I sang Jailhouse Rock, and and the only song I ever used, and he said, Dan, you did a good job. And the only other song, the only song I used to sing ever was their song Kansas City. Yeah. And now I've expanded my repertoire, but the only song I ever did, oh, Dan, would you sing something? Oh yeah, I want to do Kansas City.
Yeah, but when you sing something good and it goes over well, I mean,
just keep singing it.
Do it again, yeah. That's great. Yeah, I have a friend who's a sax player, and he's a character, real character, and so his hit song is "When a Man Loves a Woman," and he has a whole spiel because he's from the South, and he has this kind of very funny humor, and so he goes into this whole story, about his girlfriend, his old girlfriend, and and it goes over all the time. People in the audience love it.
Does he sing it or just play it on the sax?
He sings it. He's actually got a great singing voice, like out of that period of time, and I have tried to push him into singing more because I think he could, especially like Bonnie Raitt songs. I think he could really, just.
Oh, can you make me love you? That one.
Yeah. Those sad kind of Bonnie Raitt songs. I think his voice would be great. He has kind of this beautiful, old R&B style tenor, and but
you know what, Kath? I know my limitations. You're not going to hear me singing those. I'll be singing Alice in Wonderland by Sedaka and Greenfield, but I'm not going to be jumping into When a Man Loves a Woman. You got to know your limitations.
That's funny. You know who I interviewed a while back who I really loved. I wonder if you know him. He's from Canada, Mark Jordan.
I've heard that name, but I'm not sure that I know him. I think we've met before. But
he's really good. He's sold something like 35 million copies of a song through Rod Stewart. He wrote for Rod Stewart. He also wrote for the Manhattan Transfer.
Wow.
But his writing is kind of reminiscent of the Bonnie Raitt style, but his singing is, I think he phrases like a jazz singer. He's really good, and he plays great guitar. He's also a painter. He lives in Canada. I can't remember. He might have been from New York originally, but yeah, that was an honor to speak to him too, because he's pretty marvelous. Mark Jordan, M-A-R-C, Mark Jordan.
Oh, okay. I'll look for him.
Yeah.
Do you think we still have Tyler on the phone? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll play something off this Seventh Heaven album that I'm hoping will be out at the end of the summer.
Yeah, that's great.
What these pieces are, I was given a chance to write a long piece of music to start every episode of this show. And so these songs that are these pieces of music, for the most part, are songs that more or less started out the show, not like
not a theme,
like a theme song, but more like underscore, where the characters would be doing whatever activities they were doing, but there would be no dialogue, and there would just be a piece of music. And so this, I'm going to play one of these pieces that.
And while you're on that subject, Taylor had another last question that this kind of applies to. He said, let's say you're asked to compose a new theme or commissioned to write something. Can you talk about how your process would be, how you would structure a song in that process? So that's actually a good question for this.
Sure. Well, all right. So first of all, hats off to Brenda Hampton. She created this show.
Oh, okay.
And she was a big fan of live music. And I did the second show with her, Secret Life of the American Teenager. And she went to bat for me and for the live musicians. So we had union sessions on all 5 years of that and all 11 years of Seventh Heaven. And we recorded, I would say 99% over at Capitol Studios in Hollywood. And so what happened, like for an example on this theme, I think you see just the daily activities of the household. You see the mom doing something, you see the, you see Stephen Collins doing something, you see the kids doing something, and you just kind of followed them around the house. And so I titled this the Camdens. And this will give you an idea. Tyler, this is open D tuning, low to high, D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. And so that's, it's not the way a guitar is normally tuned, but D tuning is, commonly used. I wasn't breaking any new ground here, but I love D tuning. I use it all the time. But that's what this is. And I think it's in D. I might have voiced it up to, because you can also voice those up to E flat or E. And you play everything the same, it's just a different key. So
okay.
All right, so let's see. Share.
Yep, share screen.
All right. All right, and share sound. Okay. And share. And here's the Camdens. This is from, I think, the first or second season of the show. Let's see this.
Wow, pretty. Oh, that's really beautiful.
So
Oh,
the intent with all these tunings I used for that 11 years was I wanted to have something that just when you strum the guitar open,
uh-huh.
it sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
And the great thing about these open tunings is it's not like playing jazz. You can just put a couple of fingers of your left hand on a couple of the frets and kind of learn your way around these different tunings. And you don't have to use all these stop notes. It's just these open with just a couple of three fingers. And you find yourself, I found myself in all sorts of sonorities I would have never found if I was just playing a standard tuned guitar or playing a piano. And it gave me a whole other harmonic language. You know?
That was really beautiful. Did you write in that style a lot for Seventh Heaven?
Yeah, the whole show was that. Let me get this piece of music off the wall here.
So pretty, wasn't it, everybody? Yeah.
So this song happens to be in that same tuning. And I don't know if there's too much glare here, but that's the guitar part with all that motion. And you write the guitar just like you'd normally write guitar notation. However, the E is no longer an E, it's an E flat. So if you have perfect pitch, this would probably driven you crazy because you had to be very specific about what strings to write this on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think I don't understand. Why is it written in E flat?
Why is it or isn't it?
Did you say it's
not written in
E?
it's just written in like standard tuning, but you tune the strings differently.
Oh, I see.
So when you're
Oh.
playing an open E, it's not E anymore because you've already told the guitarist it's going to be an E flat.
Okay.
So it's just written like if you can read normal guitar, if you're a guitarist can read music, you just play it like you'd normally read a piece of music.
Yeah.
But it comes out sounding differently, and you have to be specific about what strings they're going to be played on, or it's going to be the wrong note. And
Wow.
John Walmsley was great at that, and Lawrence Juber, but other guitarists said, I'm not sure I want to try that little trick of yours.
Nice, but I don't know. Wow. That's
Anyway, I wrote everything out exactly the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
But you'd have to have someone who could sit down and
accomplished.
as you know, you have to be a great sight reader if you're going to do studio work.
Yeah.
You're not practicing it at home for a week, You come down, it's on the music stand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go,
I know that. I don't know how many people, who are outside of the business actually know that. Mike Lang was a good example of that. He could look at anything in the moment and make it music. Just gorgeous. And really, that's quite a talent.
Mike Lang worked on a lot of these shows with me.
Yeah.
When, he and Tom Rainier, who you probably worked with.
Oh, another brilliant guy.
But they worked when Jim Cox was, on the road with someone.
Yeah.
They would come in, do a great job. Yeah, Mike can read absolutely anything. And in fact, some of my, to save money, I hate to say it, but I was doing some of my own rendering of parts. And normally you have a wonderful copyist like my friend Booker White and his team over at Disney, or Judy Dvorak was a dear. She copied all the music for Seventh Heaven. But when I started having some budgetary constraints, I tried to do some of these parts myself on Logic, the program I worked on, and Mike would get a little perturbed, and even on one of his Facebook posts, he said, and he put a piece of music up. He said, "It looks like a Dan Foliart chart." He didn't know I was going to see that. But hi, Mike. Here I am. I'm right here. We're Facebook friends, But yeah, he could read anything, and I guess I challenged him a couple of times when I tried to render some of my own parts. Everyone has their specialty, and the copyists, man, they're just fabulous, and they do a wonderful job.
Yeah, I bumped into Liz Finch last night.
Oh, she and Judy Dvorak are really good friends, and Liz is one of the best. Yeah. Does she copy any of your music?
I did a chamber orchestra project, and I don't remember if she might have been the copyist on that. And I knew her when around the time her husband was, I guess maybe I even met her then. Her husband was sick. One of the Fowler brothers, Steve Fowler. I can't remember which one it was.
I didn't know him.
Yeah, they're the Fowler brothers and their father. They were all super talented musicians and like way beyond super even. Just genius. One of them played with Zappa and yeah. Anyway, but I met her quite a while ago. But Nan Schwartz was there too.
Do you know my friend Dennis Dreeth? Have you ever met him?
I am very tight with him. As a matter of fact, the Jazz Chamber Orchestra project, he arranged 2 of the songs, and we also used his studio for some of the stuff. And he was I think he was even one of the co-producers. Yeah.
Well, he and I are really close friends, and I know Liz has done a lot of copying for him. Yeah. And once again, I tried to do a little bit of my copying. Dennis and I did a co-concert, and one of the parts I had left out, about 20 measures. Liz would have never let that happen, but I did. In fact, it was Kansas City.
Oh my God. Kansas City.
I did like a string quartet. I did a string quartet opening, which was, kind of avant-garde, Yeah. And then it goes into the tune, and somehow I left out about 20 bars. And so the rhythm section was a different place than the horns. Dennis and I played a joint concert out at Catalina's and also at Vitello's. We did 2 concerts, and I think she was in the audience, as was Judy Dvorak. But yeah, we did 2 concerts, and I had a band that you'd be interested in. Back in the 80s, we played at my place. Did you ever play over there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, this band was called Afterglow, and it was all my TV music that I wrote with Howard Pearl during that era, and I had John Beasley on piano. You probably worked with John, and Dominic was there at that time. Lawrence was, but we had, I think Joel Peskin played sax once in a while. But is Gary Herbeck and Sam Riney. I don't know if you ever worked with Sam.
Riney. Yeah.
And trumpet players were Walt Johnson and Joe Davis. And my friend Steve Reed played percussion. But it was a really fun, jazz fusion band.
Yeah.
But I copied the parts for that, and then I tried to incorporate those later when Dennis asked me to do this joint concert. And some of the parts I think had not aged that well over the 25 years. I needed Liz, or I needed Judy, or I needed someone other than me doing this stuff. So
that's funny. Well, now I really do think that Liz was my copyist on the Jazz Chamber, because Dennis arranged 2 of the songs.
Yeah.
He arranged a a Vince Mendoza song that I wrote lyrics for with Vince's permission.
Yeah.
It's called Ambivalence in his, and then we changed the title for me.
Yeah.
Really beautiful, very unusual and beautiful song. And what else did he? Trying to remember the other song he
Well, he's
wrote.
amazing.
Yeah, there used to be a writer in town, Bill. Um, I'm forgetting names. He was a very good writer. I bet he was an ASCAP writer. Yeah, and he wrote a lot of songs like I'd say back in the late 70s, early 80s. Pop, but with jazz sensibilities. He was a guitar player. Anyway, he wrote a lot of songs, and I always loved them, so I brought back one. And Dennis actually knew him too in the old days, so it was fun to do that project too.
Well, we had a good time doing those two concerts, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
That'd be fun.
Obviously that was before COVID. I did a big band arrangement of my Roseanne theme,
Oh,
and that was a lot of fun. And everyone was all excited because the show was on the air again. It was number one, and then it was about 2 weeks after that Roseanne tweeted, and the show was canceled. So I'm glad I got that in. I don't think if it had been two
Oh my
weeks
God.
later, I don't think they probably wouldn't have wanted even to hear my big band arrangement of Roseanne.
That's too much. That's really funny. Boy, you just can't, you go, and therefore I'm sure you have this kind of personal theme. Move straight ahead, something presents itself, you like it, go for it, and don't worry about the possibilities.
You don't know.
Yeah, you really don't know. Well, Vince Mendoza got a Grammy for arranging last night. I didn't actually know that, Joyce. Thanks for telling me. He's really gorgeous.
He's great. He
arranger.
was at USC when I was back there taking some graduate classes. Just I wasn't going for a degree. I was just taking the classes, and he was in that that class with me.
He's a really beautiful musician, really great. I remember when I first heard that Joni Mitchell thing that he did, and I just wept.
Yeah.
It was just wow, so beautiful. Well, it's getting to the time. First of all, I want to thank you so much for giving me, your time, your precious time. And it's been really nice talking with you.
It was great talking with you too.
Yeah, so fun to
I'm a
find
big
out.
admirer of yours. And when I heard you sing Alfie at that evening of Hal David's song, I think that's what you sang. Whatever you sang,
I think I
blew me
did,
away.
yeah, because I love Alfie.
Yeah. That was we honored both Burt Bacharach and Hal David when I was president of the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and Burt said that was probably one of the greatest lyrics anyone ever wrote for anything.
That song is probably one of the all-time greatest songs.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful, wonderful song. Well, I also want to invite you to come, you particularly, but everybody listening. I'm doing 2 gigs in the next 2 weeks, and bassist John Leftwich and I have created this project of we call it a no net, but I'm the 9th person. But and John's arranging is really beautiful. And we're doing a kind of eclectic group of stuff, which is we called ourselves the Eclectic No Net. But Schofield, Monk, the Vince Mendoza song, a Jobim song, one of my own, a Pat Metheny song. So we're playing this Saturday at a new little jazz series in Eagle Rock at a church, a St. Bees, and that's at the Harmony Room. So this Saturday, the 9th. But maybe you would like to come to Catalina's on April 13th, which is a Wednesday night.
Listen, I'd love to come. You let me know when these are, and if I can get out there, I would absolutely. I'm a big fan of yours.
Oh, thank you. I think you'd really like the arrangements. They're
Yeah.
quite beautiful. And probably you know some of the musicians, Bob Shepard and Alex
Sure.
Redman, and um, yeah, RTM, and I can't pronounce his last name, on cello,
Yeah.
and Ted Falcon on violin and mandolin, and Mitchell Long on guitar. Yeah, it's really quite very beautiful arranging, you know.
Sounds like it's going to be awesome. Let me know about it.
Okay, I will.
Send me an
Um,
email.
Yeah, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. And because I'm rehearsing, and because these gigs are also part of, we're going to be recording right after Catalina's. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I have archives, tomorrow and the next day. And then Thursday, I have my next live person, which is a sax player who used to be, you might have even been reviewed by him. He was a reviewer, jazz reviewer, Zan Stewart. He used to live in LA. Now he lives in San Francisco. So that's Thursday. That's live, but then I'll continue for the rest of the week having archives, and then back to live next week. Um, thank you so much, Dan. It was really, really a pleasure.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you take care.
Have a great day, Dan.
All right.
Everybody else, have a great day. See you later.